Okay, we're going to be getting underway here in just a minute. There we go. Okay, so I have a new laptop, so hopefully I don't have the lag issues that I had with my previous one. We'll see. Although, so here's the thing with this laptop that I will probably need to remedy by getting an actual camera. And that is the camera is not like where you expect up here on the laptop. Oh no, it's down here. So if I type anything with the camera on, it's like the creepy hands, which is a little bizarre. So I will be looking at rectifying that as well, probably with an actual camera. So in a previous stream on campaigning, and I suppose I should introduce myself. So my name is Kara Schultz, and I am the candidate recruiter for the Libertarian Party, but you do not need to be a Libertarian to be part of the audience for this, or anything like that. I'm looking at helping people who want to be able to run for office be able to do so more successfully. I am holding elected office in a metropolitan area, and then I also go around the country and train candidates as well. I was just in Kentucky doing a candidate training there. And they had candidates from about 4 different states that made it there. So that was very cool. I particularly love helping people who haven't ever run for office before. I think we need more first-timers involved in running for office. So we'll get underway. In a former stream last Monday, I had talked about 10 questions to really ask yourself before you run for office. And then went through kind of the first 10 things that you would do, like getting, your EIN number, and then getting your, bank account, filing, all that kind of stuff. So now I want to go past that and get to some other basics, because when I talk to candidates who have their campaigns already underway, sometimes they miss these basics, and then they have a much more difficult time. So we'll make sure that we get those basics and go from there. So the first thing is to look at goal setting. So what does winning look like to you? What is your goal of running for office? Is it to win the election? For most people running for office, that actually is their goal. They want to win the election. But for other people, they may have a different goal or a series of goals in their campaign. And that's okay too, as long as you have a clear idea. So make sure you write down what your goals are for your campaign, what winning looks like to you. Is it trying to get ballot access for your party? Is it getting more people registered to vote for your party? Is it building name recognition? You could do that too. Is it training, where you've run before? Yes, Baby Yoda. I'm so into Baby Yoda. I can't even. So, yes. Sorry. Love you, Baby Yoda. So, are you training other candidates, other candidates and campaign teams through your campaign? What are those things that you're trying to do? But make sure that you can clearly articulate what those goals are. However, if winning really is your goal, as in winning election, that's what winning looks like to you. You want to be elected and hold that office. A question that you're going to need to ask yourself is, did you pick a race that you can be competitive in? How do you know that? How does the person figure out if it's a race that they can be really competitive in? What you need to do first is calculate the win number for that race. So say you're looking for a particular race and you're calculating the win number. So how do you do that? I'm going to give you a way to roughly calculate the win number. It is fairly accurate though, but it'll give you a rough calculation of your win number. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to look up the last 3 elections for that particular seat and find out what was the number of votes for the winner in that one. Add those 3 together, the last 3 times it was run, and then divide by 3. Okay, so it's giving you an average. What is the average number of votes needed to win that seat? So if you're looking at a vote total of like 700,000, that's a little different than running a race that has 700 for the win number. So you're going to evaluate, can you contact enough voters and persuade enough voters and have enough name recognition that you can win that seat? You can get that number of votes. So that's going to be something you're going to do. And in looking at name recognition, sometimes candidates will run for a race in a year. They're not particularly looking to win that seat, but what they're looking to do is to get name recognition within a geographical area by running a campaign, and they're going to run for something else later on. An example is a candidate may run for school board because the area that they're going to run for in school board geographically overlaps with an area that they want to run for city council. And really they want to run for that city council seat, but they want to work out the bugs in their campaign. They want to gain name recognition, all that kind of stuff through a campaign, so that when they do run for city council that next year, they have a better chance at winning. So calculating your win number, make sure that you do that. Next thing to do is to look at budget. How much money is it going to take to win that seat, to be competitive in that race? What you'll do there is you'll look at what the winning candidate spent and what the runner-up spent for the last 3 elections. So that's 6 numbers. What the winner spent, what the runner-up spent in the last 3 elections. You're going to add it, divide by 6 to get an average of what you need to be competitive. I mean, do you want to spend as much as the winner? Yeah, you do want that ability. Is that always possible? No, it's not always possible. But what is the minimum that you will need to be competitive? And that's going to give you that number of what the minimum is for you to be competitive. So now that you have those 2 numbers, you can decide, is that doable for me? Is that realistic? And that's something that only you can decide. You're also going to look at, if you have the number of registered voters and number of people who vote, You're going to get that number, total number of voters, right? And then what you're going to do is you're going to divide that number by 2. And that's going to give you a rough estimate of how many doors you would have to knock. Unless this is something like a statewide campaign or something where really it only matters name recognition. You're not going to be able to knock the doors on that kind of thing. But if you're looking to win and you're looking to be able to get those votes, you're going to have to do direct voter contact, and that means you're going to have to knock doors. So if you have, you're looking at 1,000 voters that regularly vote, then you can estimate that there'll be 500 houses that you're going to need to knock. And you can knock 25 houses in an hour on average. Okay, it kind of depends on, whether you're in a rural area or suburban or urban area. But that's kind of a guesstimate. So you can look at that number of hours and say, do I have that many hours? 500 houses? Oh, heck yeah, you could knock that. Okay, if you're looking at 500,000, can you knock that? How many volunteers and canvassing teams would you need to have to knock that? So you're going to do a man-hour calculation on that as well. If you want to incorporate phone banking, okay, incorporate phone banking and look at how many households do you want to call? Are you going to use it for a get out the vote effort or that type of thing? And then will you have enough time to do that and enough volunteers to do that? How many volunteers will you need? How many people will you need on your campaign team? So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to, if you decide, yes, this is a race I want to go ahead with and I think I can totally do that, you're going to be looking for a campaign manager. That is your very first thing that you're going to be looking for. Next thing is, hopefully your campaign manager will be finding your treasurer for you. So those will be the next things that you're going to be looking for on that. So that gives you a few things to do right off the bat to decide, is this feasible? You've set your goal. Can you achieve your goal? Is this feasible? Now, if you decide to go ahead, the next thing is you're going to have to find out the 10 people in your community that you must know in order to win. We're going to go through a bunch of lists here. So before we went through calculations, now we're going to be going through some lists. So who are the 10 people that you have to know and get their support in order to win? And I'm not talking about community leaders here. I'm asking you to think outside of that. So an example of that is if there's someone in your area and they volunteer for everything and everyone knows them, everyone really likes them, they interact with everyone, but they may be a little more low-key and behind the scenes. They don't like the limelight, but they are always there pitching in, and therefore people really respect them. That's the type of person that I'm talking about. So who are those 10 people that you need to know and get the support of in order to win? The next list is going to be your influencer list. These are not people that you necessarily know yet, although hopefully you've been getting to know them. So these are people who are community leaders. Okay, these are the people that people know their name. So you're going to be making this list of community leaders, media members, social media influencers, which could be like mommy bloggers, that type of person, because believe me, they have a lot of influence in your area. Religious leaders, business owners, that type of person, people who are organizational leaders. Those are the type of people you're going to be making a list of and how to contact them. And you're going to be working on setting a meeting with them just to get to know them, or finding out where are they usually at. Are they at an event, that type of thing, that you can go and meet them. hopefully this is something that you're doing at least 6 months, but hopefully a year before you run for office. However, if we're coming up on that time where you're running for office right now, this is where you make up some time on that. Especially your media members, you'll want to do that. Get to know them, tell a little bit about yourself, bring information about yourself to the meeting. If you're meeting them at an event, making a casual meeting, but just, having a good impression. Being polite, not trying to domineer their time, not trying to shove your every position on every issue in their face. Definitely resist the urge to do that. What you want to do is you want to get them talking to you. So ask them questions, get them talking. If you do that and you have the conversation where it's going back and forth and it's less talking at them, it's going to go a lot better. You're also going to want to do a list of important dates, different events, not just when early voting starts and when the election is and that type of thing, but when is the county fair or the city fair? Is there a volunteer recognition luncheon that's going to be happening? Are there policy or legislative events happening? Are there rallies happening on specific issues? Are there issue events or that type of thing? Find out what the major things are going on in your community and get those onto your calendar and start working them into how will I incorporate this into my campaign. The next list is going to give you your seed money and your volunteers. This list is most effective before you publicly announce for office, but if you have already announced for office, don't despair. This still works. What you want to do is you want to come up with 100 names. This is 100 names of people who know you and wish you well. Those are the two components to it, right? They know you and they wish you well. You can call it like a wedding list or whatever. If you're, you start coming up with, family members, close friends, business associates, all that kind of stuff, and branch out from there. If you have trouble coming up with names, look through your emails. Who do you send and receive emails from? Who do you talk to on social media? Once you have that list of 100 names, you're going to divide it into 2 lists to start out with. So whether you put that in Excel or you put it in a CRM program or paper and pencil to start with, however you do that, you're going to divide them into 2 groups. The first group is people who live close enough that you could visit, people who live too far away, and so you'll phone them. Okay, so that's the 2 lists. You're also going to divide them in this way as well. Influencers, which means they have influence over a group of people. People listen to them, respect them. They might be head of an organization or that type of thing. They are people that when they're in a room of people and they are talking, others don't interrupt them. They quietly wait to hear what they have to say. That's how you know someone's an influencer. You're also going to mark whether they are a possible major donor or not. So if they have a combined household income of $100,000 or more, that's a subjective term for you, and you're going to have to guess a little bit, but you can look up what the average salary or wage is for that particular job. So you're going to mark them as a major donor because they have a capacity to make a larger donation to you. You may, depending on your campaign, have a higher threshold for major donor, or you may have a lower threshold for major donor. It just depends. In the race I am in, a max donation is $600. So a major donor for me can actually have a combined household income of less than $100,000, and they could do a max donation. So you're going to take that list and you have them divided now, right? They're marked with the following. They're either an influencer or a major donor or both. They could be both. They either live close to you, so they're a visit, or they live far away and they're a phone. Okay, so now you can sort them into the categories, because for people who are major donors, and you're going to visit them first or call them first, for your major donors, you're going to contact them and say, I have something very exciting coming up in my life. Do you have a few minutes for a phone call, or do you have a few minutes when I could chat with you over coffee? Keep it very casual. Do not make this super formal, because again, they're people that know you and wish you well. But you do want to tell them, I'm running for office. This is the office I'm running for. This is just a little bit of the plan on how I expect to win my office. And this is what I'd like to accomplish once I'm in office. Would you be able to help me out with X dollars? Okay. You're going to be doing something similar for your influencers. You are going to ask them for a donation, but what you're really going to be asking them for is, can you talk to people in your sphere of influence about me? So it's the same kind of thing. You're either going to call them or visit them. You're going to ask for a small donation, because so even people that don't make much money, and even if they can't donate to you, please ask them for a donation. Do not disrespect them by assuming that they can't give anything. Don't make that decision for them. It's an embarrassing and somewhat humiliating thing, and people will take offense if you don't ask. Just ask for a very modest donation, but the real focus is to have them either volunteer if they live close enough, or to speak for you amongst their sphere of influence, and that's what you're really looking for, and to introduce you into their group in a favorable way. And I don't mean they just give you a list of names. I mean they introduce you. So this is going to give you both your seed money and your beginning volunteers. And I know, especially for libertarians, we look for both money and volunteers strictly from within party members. You've got to branch out farther afield than that. The strongest supporters of yours and your biggest donors are going to be from people who know you and wish you well. So start that, and you can get your seed money to start your campaign. This should give you, if you complete this, and you should be completing it if you have a November election between now and the end of February, you should get about a third of the money that your campaign needs. That's about how much you should be able to raise. Once you're able to do that, and you get through that, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be doing a timeline. A timeline is where you're going to start to backdate everything that you need to do starting at the very end. So you're going to break your campaign into sections. First of all, you're going to break it into, here's voting, here's get out the vote, here's field operations, here's startup, okay? And then in each of those sections, you're going to back things up. So say you need, for your very first door knock, you need a piece of literature, right? So you are going to start door knocking on X date. So you need your lit at least 2 days before that, right? Which means you're going to have it to the printer earlier than that, which means you're going to have to have the designer design it and send it to the printer by X date, which means you're going to have the photos ready and the copy ready before that, because the designer needs 3 or 4 days, or whatever that is. And you're going to take every single item and backdate it in that way. So each little teeny thing, and do that over and over and over, and have your campaign team help you with this as well, because they'll start to think of things. They'll think, oh, well, you need to do this. So what are the steps we have to do to complete that, and when do those steps need to be done? So that's the next thing, is really working on that timeline and getting that set. That is hugely important. And talking about that photo. The photo is going to be part of how you personalize your campaign. And personalizing your campaign is super important. You want to be able to show your personality and who you are. And you're going to want to do it in a way that people can instantly understand and recognize. And so, you can almost think of it as like an archetype. You're creating an archetype of yourself. Who are you at your essence? Are you someone who can fix things? Is that your archetype? Are you going to be the hero? What is that archetype? So start thinking about that, because when you have your photos taken, when you have your lit designed, when you design your website, all of that, are you the brainy one? Are you the nurturing mother? What is that archetype going to be? You're going to incorporate that into everything, which means you also have to decide what your values are. I'm not talking about the issues you're going to be running on. I'm talking about your values, what you want to communicate as your core values. And write those down. Have no more than 3, though. What are your 3 core values? Is it honesty, innovation, and transparency? What are those values? Or is it cooperation? Only you can come up with what those values are going to be. When you have your photo taken, tell your photographer, this is what I want to look at, and do those 3 values. What do you suggest? And they should have suggestions for you. When you're having your lit designed, tell your graphic designer, these are my core values. I want it to look that way. And then when you have your photographs taken, when you get them back, when you're having proofs of your lit, show them to people and say, if you were to guess what the values were or what this says to you, what would that be? What feeling do you get when you look at this? Same with your website and same with everything. And then you're going to carry that through your entire campaign. And everything you do on your campaign, you're going to ask, does this match up to this value? And if you do that, you're going to have a unified message. And it's going to come through to your residents and your voters. So that's something I want you to consider, is that personalization. Another thing on personalization is, how can you turn mass impersonal events into personal one-on-one engagements? Because the more personal and one-on-one you can make your campaign, professional photos are absolutely worth every penny. You are so right, Eric. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Selfies are not cutting it. Do not do this. Professional photos, get them done early. You are right, Eric. Totally. So how can you turn those impersonal mass events into one-on-one connections with voters so that you can really connect with people and earn their vote? An example I would give is parades. I'm not going to tell you not to do a parade. Traditionally, when you do a parade as a candidate, you and your supporters walk in the parade and people see you, and it's kind of the same as like a TV ad or a radio ad or that kind of thing. And it's not effective for making a connection. It does show legitimacy. I will give you that. It does show legitimacy. But I'm going to ask you to think of mass events in a different way and do them in a different way. So my suggestion for doing a parade would be, don't walk in the parade. You and your volunteers walk the sidelines of the parade, on the sidewalk side, not the street side, before the parade starts. And you're going to make a children's activity sheet, and it is going to be branded with your campaign. And you are going to have, your campaign buttons or, that kind of stuff. And what you're going to do is you're going to walk it beforehand because, okay, everyone got there super early so that they could get their spot, right? You got to get your spot. That's the big thing on parades. And so now they're sitting there with the kids in the heat, and the kids are fighting and they're bored and it's not going well. So you're going to be the hero. And you and your volunteers are going to walk along the sides on the sidewalk, and you're going to be handing the kids their activity sheet and a crayon. And then you're going to be shaking hands with the parents and, giving your campaign lit to them and saying, oh, just wanted to drop something off for the kids so that they have something to do while we're waiting for the parade to start. Now you've turned it into a personal one-on-one connection, and they're looking at you favorably. You did something, even though it was small, that immediately improved their lives. So that's how I'm going to ask you to start looking at mass events differently. How can you change how you do that event in a way so that now it's personalized? You're making a personal connection. Another example would be your lit. So you can hand out buttons, or you could hand out like a little magnet that has like a schedule of events for your community or something that they could keep, something that would be useful to them. My lit that I handed out on the back had a recipe, and people found that beneficial and useful, and they kept it and they were happy with that. So that was the way it personalized, and it tied into who I am because I'm very into food. And if anyone knows me for any amount of time, they know I'm very into food. So for me to give out a recipe, that's not out of character for who I am. It's also a little fun, a little irreverent, which is also a part of who I am, part of my personality. So those are some things I want you to think about. And the last thing that I'm going to leave you with is I want you to think about what data system you're going to use and how you're going to manage your data. Are you going to use Excel? Are you going to use a CRM program? Are you going to use an off-the-shelf program that you subscribe to like Nation Builder? How are you going to manage data? Because from the very beginning, you need to sort out supporters from people who aren't supporters. You're going to need to know who you've emailed and how you email them. You're going to need to know who donated to you, because 50% of them will donate again if you ask, and 30% of those people will donate a third time. So how do you keep track of all the data and information, not just for yourself, but for your volunteers as well? And then to make sure that system, whatever you're using, can interact with your calendar, can work with your door knocking app, can work with an SMS system, can either record or send out emails for you. What data system are you going to use to keep track of who are the voters? Where do they live? Have they voted in primaries? Are they Republicans or Democrats or Libertarians or Independents or Green? What system are you going to use? Because what you start out using is pretty much what you're going to have to use for the duration of your campaign. You're not going to be able to switch. It will be a chaotic nightmare. So think about that and choose carefully. So we talked a little bit about fundraising, and this is the period of fundraising. And we're going to go more in depth than that in the next one. A little more in depth in how do you craft your ask for fundraising? How do you contact people? How do you set these appointments? How do you expand past, your 100 names? How do you make a finance committee? And that is not a treasurer. That's an entirely different thing. So we're going to get more into depth in that. So hopefully this was helpful for everyone. If anyone has any questions, you can definitely pop them into chat. I hope this was coherent as well. The trip to Kentucky for training was amazing and fantastic and all that stuff, but the getting there was crazy pants. So I am still kind of exhausted and tired from that. Headed there on Friday, got to Chicago, and then sat on a plane for about 3 hours. And then because of the snowstorm, they canceled my flight, and then stood in line trying to get a different flight for 3 hours, and then said screw it, and then hopped on Megabus at midnight, and it was packed because everyone else was trying to figure out how to get to where they were going. And then the bus broke down, so we got another bus, and so no sleep. Got into the training right at about 10 when it was supposed to start, which everyone was so nice. They clapped for me when I arrived, so that was very kind. But let me tell you, I was a little tired from no sleep, and definitely not the freshest smelling person at the at the training. So, but the training went really well. It was great to meet all these candidates and campaign workers and that kind of stuff. And you know, I mean, that's the kind of thing that I absolutely live for, and doing these kind of things too. So if it is helpful, let me know. If there are topics you would like to hear about, let me know. And if you are thinking of running for office, right there, you can definitely, you know, if you want to run for office as a Libertarian, you know, hop onto there. There's a form you fill out. We can contact, we can start to talk to one another. I help candidates one-on-one, help them with their campaign plans, whatever help that they need. We do need people to step up and run for office, and we also need people to help them, to volunteer for them, to donate, to do all those kinds of things. So thank you everyone for being on here. This was fantastic. We will be archiving these to YouTube. This is one of the reasons why I went with Twitch, is because it seems to record a little better and seems to archive a little better. So, oops. So I'll be able to archive these onto YouTube. I'll probably clip them down a little bit and then get them up, and then we can build a body of these and refer back. So thank you everyone. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I really appreciate it. And I'm going to figure out this camera thing so that I don't creepy hands it, and I don't know. It's a little bizarre to have that camera down there. So thank you everyone. Hope you have a wonderful evening.